Hey guys, Eliot from Cyclestation here. As part of our car park sale this weekend, we're selling some Janus Trail X bikes and a few other models in boxes. We're just doing this video to show you how to put them together. So come along for the ride. All right, so to build your bike, you're gonna need a couple of tools. We need a Phillips head screwdriver, a 4, 5 and 6 mil Allen key, a couple of loose ones is handy as well. Some side cutters and a pedal spanner. So in the box, you'll get the bike with the wheels off. So the rear wheel will be in, this one will be here, and it'll be all packaged. So you can remove the packaging. There'll be a seat and a seat post. And then in a little cardboard box, you have the pedals, quick release skewer for the front wheel, a crimp for the front brake, and a little plug, and some reflectors and a belt. So once we've got all the packaging off, our first step is to try and get the bike into like a rolling chassis. What we're going to do first is put the seat post in the seat tube. So a bit of grey just to stop things from seizing up in the future. Coat the inside of the seat tube there, and just open up the quick release clamp. Seat post goes in like that. Yeah, if that's too tight, you can back that off a little bit. And you should be able to do it up with one hand, just like that. All good. So now we've got the seat post in, we'll put it in the stand. So now we've got all the packaging off. The next step will be to put the handlebars into the stem. So to do that, we need to remove these 2 bolts, and that'll take that front part of the clamp off, and we can pull these up, make sure we get our cables all aligned, and that will go straight in there. So we need our 5 mil Allen key for this. Undo these bolts. And make sure we get our cables aligned on the right sides. Put that clamp back in. Just get these started by hand just so we don't cross thread them or anything. And our 5 mil Allen key again. We can just do these up sort of loosely because we'll do all the adjusting once it's on the ground. Now we can attach the front brake cable. So you'll see here we've got an end like that on the cable. That goes into the lever, but we need to align a few items to get that in. So the easiest way to do that is to unhook the brake first. So we give ourselves a bit of room with this cable. So that comes through there. Now we need to get that cable through that area there. So we line this up, you'll notice there's a slot there and on the lock ring. So if we line those 2 up, then we can fit the cable through there. And the head of that cable fits up into there. Up like that. We might have to release a bit of tension there. So get your 5 mil Allen key and undo that. And that'll let the cable slide through. That'll give us enough room to pull that all the way through there. And this end of the cable here goes back in like that. And we'll just move these barrel adjusters around so it doesn't come back out again. Next step, we can put the front wheel in. So when you get the front wheel, it won't have the quick release skewer in there. So we'll need to put that in. So this is our quick release skewer. We have to undo this side and take one of the springs off, leave the other spring on there. And this lever will go on the left-hand side of the wheel. So just have a look at the tread pattern and compare it to the rear, and you'll be able to tell which way it rolls forward. So we've got that in the correct position there. So that's the left-hand side. Get a bit of grease on that one, just stop things from squeaking. And that one threads through there. We can put the other side of the quick release skewer back on there. Just loosely is all enough. All right, so now we put this into the dropouts. So up like that. And just make sure you have those brakes undone so you can fit it through. And then wind up the quick release skewer just until it's tight enough to do up. There we go. Should be able to do it up just with the palm of your hand. So the next thing we can do is get the pedals on. So you'll see here you got 2 pedals. If you look at the end of the thread, it's got a R and an L for for right and left. We know which pedal goes on which crank. The right-hand side is on the right-hand side of the bike, facing forward. You get a bit of grease on the threads of the pedal. The pedals have what we call opposing threads, which means that when we put them on either on the left or the right, they both wind forward onto the bike. So we need the right-hand side to put on the right crank. The direction of the thread on both sides is towards the front of the bike, is winding the thread into the crank. So the easiest way to do that is to start by hand and just wind that in. You should feel it grab. We just do that by hand so we don't cross thread anything. Now, you can keep winding like that with that hand, or you can use the crank to your advantage by holding that pedal there and winding backwards, and that will wind it on as you pedal backwards. We do the same with the left-hand side. So wind that on by hand. That's going on. And then we can start pedaling backwards. And that's winding on as we pedal backwards. There we go. Now this is where we need our pedal spanner. It's a 15mm spanner, but it's thinner than a normal one, just because the gap here is a bit hard to get into. So we put that on there and push forward. So we're tightening the pedal onto the crank, just like that. And it's the same on the other side. So both sides we're tightening by pushing to the front of the bike. There we go, now the pedals are on. Now we've got our rolling chassis. Everything's sort of on the bike. We'll put the reflectors on last. But now what we need to do is put the bike on the ground and make sure the wheels are in correctly, because if we start adjusting brakes or anything like that, before we do that, we could just adjust them incorrectly. So we take the bike out of the stand. Now we open up the quick release skewer on the front there and just make sure that's centered in the dropouts. And do it up again. And check the same for the rear as well. And now that we've centered our wheels in the dropouts, we can look at adjusting the brakes. So you'll notice here the brake pads are completely out of alignment. That's just because that's the way it comes packaged. So we need to turn those around and get them interfacing with the rim nice and straight. So to do that, we get our 5mm Allen key and undo that bolt a little bit just to let that move freely. What we do, once that pad is loose, we can just position it like so. Now we want the pad to touch the rim but not the tyre. So we need to get it as high as we can and as straight as we can without hitting that tyre there. Once it's in position, you can push the brake arm against the rim and that'll hold it in position there. And you can just do that up just a little bit, not too much. If you tighten it too much, then it'll move obviously. So we just want to stop that there. Now it's in position, we can hold the brake pad and tighten it up the rest of the way. Now the next step is we need to set the cable in the right position. So we've still got that loose from when we put the other end of the cable into the lever. First step is, don't worry about tightening that up yet. We need to get this lead unit, it's called, into this bracket here. So we just pull that across and that slots in there like that. Now we can unwind that lock nut and wind the barrel adjuster all the way in, because that will give you your fine tuning as the brake pads wear. So just set that all the way in, make sure that's in there, and put the rubber boot over the end there to stop any dirt getting in. Now we can pull the cable through. If you use your hands to just pull these brake levers arms together, you can feel that's essentially engaging the brake, so the wheel won't move. Now we want to back that off just a little bit so that we have some room at the lever. So just let it come out a bit. It's a bit of trial and error just to get it right. Just do that and tighten up the cable. And then we can test how much play there is at the lever. That's pretty good. You want it nice and firm, but not coming all the way into the bar. If we let too much cable through, then this lever would hit the bar and it wouldn't actually engage the brake properly. So that's pretty good. We'll just make sure that's tight. Now you'll notice when I pull the brake, only one of these arms is moving. So what we need to do is adjust the spring tension using these Phillips head screws. So grab your Phillips head screwdriver. You can see this one on this side is moving, but this one isn't. So that means that the tension on this side is too low. So we need to increase the tension to pull that away from the rim. So we do that by winding in that screw. Wind that in a bit. That's made a bit of difference now. So both those levers are moving, but this side's still moving a bit more than this side. So we can actually decrease the tension on this side to let it come back across by unwinding this screw just a fraction. There we go. Now that's pretty even, so that's good. And the wheel spins freely. Now to finish off the cable, we just have to cut this to length and put the crimp on. Just bend that down, grab your side cutters, and we want to cut it about the same level as the brake pad there. There we go. Grab the crimp that came in the box. Just thread that on there and just crimp it a couple of times just to take away that sharp edge. So when you get the bike out of the box, the rear brake will be set up and it's pretty close, but it just needs a bit of adjustment. So we just want to check the balance on both sides with that spring tension. Operate the brake and have a look. That's actually pretty good. Check that the wheel spins freely. That's all good, so we don't really have to do anything with that. Just put that down there. Just make sure it doesn't rub on the tyre. And double check that it's done up. Just with the 5mm Allen key. That's tight, so that's all good. So our next step is we need to tune the gears. So what we're going to do is use our shifter, drop the gears into the highest gear at the back there on the cassette. So just click all the way down. This is probably the most difficult part of tuning it. There's a few things we need to do with the rear derailleur. We need to set the limits, which is how far the derailleur can move. So we want to set the limit so it doesn't jump off this way, or the chain doesn't jump off into the spokes. So to do that, we can just apply a bit of pressure, pulling the derailleur towards us a little as we pedal, just to make sure that limit's correct. And if it was too loose, the chain would jump off. I'm just applying a bit of pressure there, but the chain's staying on. It's not making any sounds like it's wanting to jump off or anything, so that's good. Now we need to check our low limit, which is up this end. So we need to push the derailleur as we pedal. Just hold it like that. Push it up. You can see there it's just wanting to jump off a little bit. So we need to wind in the low limit just a fraction. So here we've got 2 limit screws. So we just need to grab our Phillips head screwdriver. So we need to wind in our low limit just a little bit. So just turn that in. That should be enough. Just double check it. So push the derailleur up. That's pretty good. I'm applying pressure, but it's not going any further. So the next step we need to do is check our cable tension. All right, so we're in our highest gear, and we want to click the shifter up one shift. So we click it once, and it jumped up to the next gear. So that's pretty good. Now we're going to click it down and see how that way works. That's pretty quick. So just test that a couple of times. And this is just setting the indexing of the gears. So that one's tuned pretty well out of the box. If it's not going to shift up, then we need to increase the cable tension. So if the tension was too low and we clicked one gear up on our shifter and the chain wouldn't go up to the next gear, we need to just increase the tension by winding this little barrel adjuster out. We just turn this anti-clockwise, just turn it a couple of turns, and that just increases the rear gear cable tension. So we'll test it again. There we go, it's shifting up to the next one. We'll try going back the other way, and that shifts down fine. So that cable tension's correct. So that's our rear derailleur set. So we've set our limits and our cable tension. The next thing we need to do is set the front derailleur. So it has the same things, it has 2 limit screws here. We got a high and a low, and it'll be printed there, it'll tell you which one. So low is the smallest ring and high is the biggest ring. And then we have our cable tension as well, but instead of having a barrel adjuster down at this end of the cable, we have it up on the shifter. Use our front shifter on the left there, click it up, see if it goes up to the next gear. That's pretty good, but we can hear that the chain's rubbing on this side, so we need to get this derailleur to move across a little bit further, and to do that we need to increase the cable tension. So we go to our barrel adjuster on the shifter and wind that out, so anti-clockwise, wind that out a couple of turns. And as we go, that sound of the chain rubbing on the derailleur should disappear. There we go, that's set pretty well. So we check that that's shifting correctly between the first and the second ring. So we click down, goes down fine, click up, and that goes up to the middle ring fine. So then we can test the next one. There we go. Now we can hear on the highest gear, or the biggest ring, that's rubbing on there. So that just means that our limit, our high limit is incorrect. So we need to release that a little bit just to let it come out further. So grab your Phillips head screwdriver. You'll see in here, this is your high limit screw. You can see it's butting up against this part of the derailleur. That's preventing the derailleur from moving any further over. So we need to undo this a little bit to allow it to move further. You can pedal at the same time just to test it. There we go. That's got rid of the sound. See if I wind that in, we end up rubbing on the chain. So just wind that out just enough that it's not rubbing. And just check the shifting on that. Check that it shifts fine between all the gears. We've tuned the gears so that we know that it shifts on all 3 rings at the front when it's in the lowest here. We just want to make sure that it does the same when it's in the big ring at the back here. So shift up all the way, and then test the front shifting again. And that works. You'll notice there's a bit of rubbing and sound with the chain here, but we try and avoid running a cross chain on this. So we want to keep the chain straight as possible, so that's tuned correctly. There we go. Now gears are tuned. All right, so one of the final steps we have to do is set the headset and tension the stem and the handlebars. Now we've got our handlebars there, but they've just been loose since the start. So we just want to make sure that it's set up evenly in the center there, and you can just adjust that to however you like. You don't want the handlebars all the way up here to give yourself RSI or anything. So just get that at a nice angle there, something that's nice and comfortable. And grab your 5mm Allen key and tighten these up evenly. Just going back and forward between each one to make sure there's even pressure on them. Now the next step is to set our headset. At the moment, we've got our stem pretty loose there, and we've got those 2 bolts to do up, but we also have this tension bolt here. So this bolt on top doesn't need much tension on it. All it does is pull these parts together to remove any play from the bearings that are in here. What we need to do is sort of get that straight, just roughly, and use our 5mm Allen key just to tighten that. You don't need to reef it, you can just adjust it as so. Now the way to test that that's set correctly is we just apply our front brake and put your hand down here just to feel for any play and just rock that back and forward a little bit. There's no play there. And we want to check that it's not too tight either. So lift the front wheel off the ground and that should just fall to the side. If it doesn't, then it's a bit too tight and you can just back off that tension a little bit. That's all good. So then we just set our stem straight with the wheel. And just look down, you can line everything up. Take your 5mm Allen key and do up those stem bolts, alternating between each bolt, just to make sure they're evenly tightened. So the tyres will be, out of the box, the tyres will be a bit low. So we just need to pump those up. So just undo that cap there. And this is a Schrader valve. So we can just put a pump on there and they should be set to about 35 or 40 PSI, but no more. All right, that's it. Bike's built. Thanks for watching, guys. If you have any issues, just give us a call. We do a $66 safety check if you need it. Thank you.